organized for our next meeting. Counsel,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Murren, there's a designated seat for you at the end of the table down there with your witnesses, and if you'll get in place, we can get going.
Very good.
Thank you.
That's Counsel applicant. Is this okay here? Or-
Yeah, probably right across from the stenographer. So the young lady in the green is the stenographer, so that would be a good location.
Thank you.
We can ask that question. So just for purposes of understanding who's here today, are the people that are in the audience, are you here for this hearing, for the Commonwealth Charter Academy, or are you here for another matter?
No,
Yes.
this
Yes.
one.
So you're all here for this matter? Okay, thank you very much. Ma'am,
I'm here for both.
for both?
Isn't there one at 3 as well?
Yes, the 1 and 3 o'clock will be continued, that's why I'm asking. the
Oh,
question. Okay.
Okay. We're going to call the meeting of the Wyomissing Zoning Hearing Board to order. We're here today to hear from Mr. Philip Murren, am I pronouncing it? Murren, Esquire, on behalf of his client Commonwealth Charter Academy, the charter school, owner of property located at 1001 Penn Avenue and identified as tax parcel, I won't bother to read, who submitted an application requesting a variance from section 606.D.1 to allow 3 stop signs to be installed at the property that will exceed the maximum permitted sign size of 15 square feet, with one size measuring 17.23 square feet, the second measuring 47.8 square feet, and third measuring 47.8 square feet. A variance from section 606.D.2 to allow 2 instead of 1 wall-mounted sign to face any one street, and special exception approval under section 606.8.19 to allow a sign to be installed that has a message that can change manually, mechanically, or electrically. Okay. Before we begin, I'll introduce the people at this end of the table. First is Anderson Deutschman, who you may have already met, who is our zoning officer. Najla Batish is a member of the zoning hearing board. Robert Ullman is a member of the zoning hearing board. Counsel is Dan Becker, and I'm David Rothbaugh. I'm the chairman of the zoning hearing board. Mr. Becker will tell you how we're going to proceed.
Okay, so the way this runs, it's a quasi-judicial hearing. That means that we have a stenographer taking down the transcripts, so it's going to be very important for whoever's providing testimony or making comments today to speak slowly and make sure you're addressing them to the stenographer. And that also means 1 person at a time talking. Second, because the application was filed by Commonwealth Charter Academy, it's your burden of proof today, which means that you have the obligation to come to the board and explain why the relief that you're requesting should be granted, explaining what that hardship would be. I understand that you have counsel representing you today, so I'm sure he's probably already gone through that with you, but I just want to make sure we're clear in understanding how that works. And you can provide that information to the board through testimony and exhibits, and I see you have exhibits in front of you. That will be testimony under oath, and those exhibits will be presented then to the board. At the conclusion of each person's testimony, the board members and I, as well as the members of the public, will have the opportunity to ask questions, but they're going to be limited to questions at that point in time, and if they request standing, which we'll be going through in a few moments. After all of your testimony has been presented, any of the residents who are here who are requesting standing will have the opportunity to do the same thing. They'll be able to present evidence and testimony, and you'll have the opportunity to ask them questions, as will we as well. After all the testimony has been submitted today, the board will recess into an executive session. Typically, we will present an oral decision today, but as you just saw with our prior case, we were unable to come to a decision at the last hearing because of time constraints, and we just rendered that one today. But typically we do. However, we have 45 days in which to do so. Does anybody have any questions about how we're going to proceed with the hearing today?
Am I to assume that the documents that were already submitted with the application are considered board exhibits and already in evidence?
No, we're going to go through those right now. The board exhibits we will go through here right now.
Very good.
Okay? Well, actually, I'm gonna go through and finish making sure I understand who is requesting standing and who is interested in party status. So, for the record, I see that there are 4 or 5 people here who have indicated before we started the hearing that they're here for this particular hearing. You have the right to request party status or standing at the hearing, which means that you have a substantial, this hearing will have a substantial impact on you and your property. The purpose of standing is it gives you the right to receive certain notices and to appeal the decision if you don't like the outcome of the decision. If you are simply here to hear what's going on, or you want to make an unsworn statement at the end of the hearing for the board to consider, you do not have to request standing. We'll give you the opportunity to do that as well. Okay? So at this point, I'm going to just go around the room and for the record, get the names of those individuals who are here and just find out what your position is. And we'll start with you. Are you requesting standing?
No.
Okay. And just for the record, what's your name?
Susan Schmale.
Thank you, Ms. Schmale. Sir.
Yes, Eric Miller, Senior, Eric Miller, Junior. We own the property directly behind the building, the parking lot there, actually the closest residential property.
Are you requesting standing?
From a position of our feelings on it, yes, we would like to be notified.
So you want to have the ability to file an appeal if you don't like the outcome, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, then you're requesting standing. Mr. Muir, do you have any objection to that request for standing?
Not to an adjoining property owner.
Thank you very much. Ma'am,
Dr. Angela Adler, I am not requesting standing.
thank you. Mr. Jaden?
No, not requesting standing.
All right, now that we have those people identified, what I want to do is run through the board exhibits, the administrative exhibits, and we'll give everybody the opportunity to ask any questions relating to them if they do have any. These are the exhibits that are required by the zoning ordinance and the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code to get us where we are today. Those exhibits are as follows. First, board exhibit number 1 is the application for the relief that's being requested today. Exhibit number 2 is a copy of the McCarthy Engineering denial letter dated April 26, 2024. Exhibit number 3 is a copy of the notice of the public hearing, and this is the notice that was essentially read into the record a few moments ago, along with what was posted at the property and in the newspaper. Exhibit number 4 is a copy of the proof of publication that indicates that the notice was published in the Reading Eagle. And it looks like the run dates were, glasses for that, July 17th, 24th of 2024. Exhibit number 5 is a copy of the affidavit of posting of the notice of public hearing at the property. Exhibit number 6 is an affidavit of mailing to the adjoining property owners. And exhibit number 7 is Anderson Deutschman, who's here today, commercial zoning officer's memo to the zoning hearing board dated July 19th, 2024. Mr. Muir, do you have any objections to those exhibits?
No, I would like to see a copy of the memorandum if that's a public.
You absolutely may. Do you have an extra copy that
You have a copy.
Thank you.
To Mr. Miller, do either of you have an objection to the board exhibits?
No.
Okay, thank you. Then these exhibits will be moved into evidence right now.
Could I also verify the contents of exhibit number 1, the application? Does it consist of 16 pages?
It has actually a number of pages, including the plan that was submitted with the application as well. Now, what we'll probably do, Mr. Mirren, is as you're going through this, we will probably identify them as applicants' exhibits to the extent that you're referencing those particular plans, just so they're for ease of the record and understanding and following along.
All right. Just want to also make sure that there was a narrative submitted, 4-page narrative on Commonwealth Charter Academy letterhead. Just want to make sure that that's part of the board exhibits.
I believe that it was. Let me just double check. Right, yes, I saw it here.
And with chair's indulgence, with the completeness of those exhibits, I think we can condense the testimony, the sworn testimony, for the board's edification, so that what's contained in the documents is verified by a live witness.
Sounds like a good idea.
The exhibit you referenced is part, or the letter you referenced, or the narrative is part of the exhibit, Board Exhibit 1.
Thank you.
Well, finished?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Philip Murrin, with the law firm of Ball, Murrin and Connell in Camp Hill. We are the attorneys for Commonwealth Charter Academy. With me is Mr. James Skinner, who is the facilities director for Commonwealth Charter Academy. He has been shepherding the project across the street at 1001 Penn Avenue, which is pretty far along the way right now. We just did a walking tour, and the interior renovations are coming along very well, and the exterior renovations as well. The sign request is part of bringing the project up to its conclusion. To my right is William Lockett, and Bill, I'm going to let you identify yourself for the stenographer so that they have your precise information.
William Lockett, Lockett.
And your affiliation.
We are the sign company representing CCA.
Did you say sign company
Sign
or
co-
sign?
Sign company, yes, ma'am.
And CCA, I assume, is the abbreviation for the
Yes.
acronym for Commonwealth
Correct.
Charter
Yes.
Academy.
That's
And,
correct.
and if you don't mind, it rolls off the tongue a little easier.
Yes, it does.
Thank you. And Jack, would you identify yourself for this stenographer?
I'm Jack Tussman, T-U-S-M-A-N, and I'm a lighting designer, lighting and sign designer for SEMA Network. I work for Bill at sign manufacturers. At SEMA Network, C-I-M-A, Network is the company name.
And the chair very accurately described what the nature of the requests are with respect to variance and special exception approval. We have 3 signs that require dimensional variance, one of which is only 2-point-something square feet above, 2.23 square feet above the allowable maximum, depending on what your history has been. It's either de minimis or close to de minimis dimensional variance there. The others are larger, 47.8 square feet on both the front and the back of the building. By front, I mean frontage on Penn Avenue, and the back being the parking lot side of the building. It's a 2 full-story building, commercial building, had been a bank building. There is a half of the building that is 3 stories with a street level entrance, but the portions that are going to be occupied and used for educational purposes by CCA will be the two upper levels of the building, the full levels of the building. Primarily occupied by teachers teaching from cubicles. There will be some meeting spaces and ordinary spaces that you see for lunch and rest facilities for the occupants. What I'm going to do is defer to Bill Lockett, whose firm helped prepare the application, and he can verify that everything that's in the narrative is true to the best of his information and belief.
We should have him sworn.
We should have all 3.
All 3.
Certainly.
Sworn and Anderson.
And while we're doing it, why don't we also do Mr. Miller's, since they both
Okay.
asked for stamp. So we're going to swear 2 of you in too, since you requested stamp.
Did you say it's Tussman?
Yeah, T as in Tom, U, S as in Sam, M-A-N.
Skinner, Skinnner.
I have your
Oh,
name.
thank you.
Mr. Miller, your
Eric.
name?
Eric J. Miller.
And Eric P. Miller.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay,
All right.
please proceed.
If we may, I'd like to start with Mr. Lockett.
Thank you, Bill.
And first of all, Mr. Lockett, just to, for the record, if you would verify that that your firm assisted in the preparation of the narrative that's part of the exhibit.
We did.
And would you please describe the nature of the sign projects, what's being proposed, and all of the dimensions that are involved?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity to review this application with the
You are
board.
gonna have to speak up, Bill.
Oh, okay.
Big room, and I don't know what they do behind me, but they make noise.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of CCA for this project. I don't want to speak on behalf of CCA, but they're really excited to be part of the community. And we're going to talk, without going through the complete narrative, just pieces of the narrative as they relate to signs, as well as the conditions and reasons why we're feeling as though we crossed the threshold for the dimensional variance. We will be talking about primarily 4 signs, 3 sets of letters, as Phil pointed out, varying in size from a little over 15 square feet, 17.23 square foot to be precise, and 2 signs that are 47.8 square feet to be precise. This property, located at 1001 Penn Avenue, is zone C1. As Phil pointed out, the building structure is 240 linear feet. It's a very, very large building. The building is very irregular and pretty unique in that it has 2 entrances that will be used by CCA and the CCA staff and partners or people coming to the facility. The south side of the building is abutted very close to the street. The back side of the building, the north side, has an irregular shaped varying degrees of parking lot. Both areas will be available to travel in and outside of the building. So with that, I'll speak a little bit about how we signed this location in order to really do 2 things. One is to, in a minimal way, navigate vehicular and pedestrian traffic safely in and outside the building. But in addition to that is to support public relation and public awareness efforts for CCA. The signage plays a significant role in bringing awareness to the public about who CCA is and helps with their ability to get students and faculty and people to understand their brand and learn more about their business. We'll start on the south side. There are 2 signs, one of which we're requesting a dimensional variance for, and the other we're requesting a special exemption for. Sign 3, starting there, is a set of CCA channel letters that will be at the top level of the building. As shown there, we maybe just scroll down here.
So let's make sure we're marking these as we're going. I understand they're part of the application, but I want to make sure that we're marking them as we're going. So, Aaron, just if you can kind of direct his testimony, and as we're talking about these, try to make sure it's clear for the record, as well as identifying them on the exhibits.
All right, well, I think that the plans are a unified singular document.
That's fine. Then I think the pages are also numbered, if I recall.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do then is, since you're going to be referring then, I believe, Mr. Lockett, to a packet of plans that were part of the application, but for purposes of our discussion, since you're referring to them, we're going to call these applicant exhibit number 1. And then as you're going through them, please make sure you're referencing applicant's one and the page numbers. And remember, the stenographer can't tell, you know, when you're pointing to something, so try to describe it by words where you are.
So what we would like to do then maybe is, we'll start from the top with Exhibit 1 on page 2. And we'll follow the sequencing of the drawing to identify the signs and the sign types for the board. And then I can come back and speak to the narrative and reasoning behind the signs. I think that'll be the most efficient process. So on sheet 2 of Exhibit 1, the signs we're referring to are on the north side of the building, sign 1, which is a set of channel letters, sign 2, which is a set of channel letters. On the south side of the building, sign 3 is a set of channel letters, and sign 4 is a freestanding monument sign with an LED message center, and sign 5 is an existing sign that we will be planning to reface, which is not part of the request today for the dimensional variance and or the special exemption. If we go to sheet 3 of Exhibit 1, we can see both elevations in their full context. I do want to point out that there is lighting shown on these renderings that is not part of the application, that is not part of the construction project, and has been completely removed from the project. So starting again with the north elevation, you can see that both signs are positioned on the building at the entrance on the north elevation. Sign 1 is the 17 square foot sign, and sign 2 is one of the 47.8 square foot signs. On the south elevation, shown in elevation number 2 on sheet 2 for Exhibit 1, is the second set of CCA letters identifying the south elevation entrance area. That is 47.8 square feet. And sign number 4 is the replacement of the existing monument sign with a smaller monument sign with the LED message center. We can skip through sheet 4 because again the lighting is removed from the project and there are no signs on the east and west elevation. I think we can come back to Exhibit 1 if there's any questions in terms of the way these signs are fabricated, but maybe it does make sense if we can, while we're on this exhibit, go to sheet 11, which will show the existing monument sign and the proposed monument sign. This is what we're requesting a special exemption for. As you can see, we will be removing the sign depicted on the left, replacing it with the sign shown on the right, which will be a combination of the CCA logo as well as a message center. I want to point out that CCA is willing to cooperate with all of the mandates within the special exemption of the sign, as noted in the code criteria. But I just wanted to see, and we're also going to beautify that with the surrounding base to just make it look a little more natural with some of the other elements within the community and the building.
Mr. Lockett, just pardon the interruption, but when you mentioned the other,
I can't hear you.
oh, I'm sorry, the other elements in the ordinance relating to LED messaging, it's the frequency of the changing of the sign, the luminescence, things of that nature, correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
And so coming back to the way we position these signs, we really looked at the overall criteria with the irregularity of the location, the building being very close to the street. That's the reason we chose a similar size, just slightly smaller monument sign. I do want to point out that it's common practice with CCA that that LED board has the ability to change messages, and oftentimes they partner with the community in order to put community-based place messages on there that help to benefit an activity or an event or something that the community is trying to do. You'll find that there's not too many partners in the community better than CCA in terms of being a steward of the community. The second sign that we showed in elevation is the 47.8 square foot sign that will be in sort of the foreground of the picture we're looking at, which is again sheet 11 on exhibit 1. It'll be put up above the window area. And it's a very similar sort of situation on the other elevation.
Okay, so hold on a second.
Yeah.
Mr. Lockett, so you're now referring to sign number 2 that you referenced on page 2.
Correct.
And then you're saying that that's going to go above the windows that we're showing on page 11?
That's correct. It's going above the windows as depicted on sheet 3 of exhibit 1. And then on the adjacent side of the building, which is the north side of the building, we positioned the primary channel letters above the secondary entrance. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say secondary entrance. There are 2 entrances, but the second entrance that I'm referring to, as well as the C logo as well. In terms of size, I did want to bring as a visual for the board and for the community here 2 examples of typically how CCA identifies themselves.
So could we mark this as applicants?
It'll be applicants number 2.
So what I wanted to show here, these are 2 existing CCA buildings that operate the same way. And you see a couple of differences. You see very large Commonwealth Charter Academy letters fully written out. You see LED border tubing around the entire perimeter and architectural features of the building. You see a very, very large LED board with messaging for the school and the public, and more signs in general within these buildings.
If you could turn around there, please.
Yeah. This is, you want to just, I'm sorry, come back over here, sir.
And
So-
for the record, the locations of these signs?
Yes,
In what municipalities?
For the record, one is in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and the other is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And the reason that I bring this to show the board is that in our proposed application with the dimensional variance and looking at the code as written, it's important for CCA as being part of the community to not ask for all of this, but to come up with a design and a sign package that is much more limited and much more in unison with the goals of Wyomissing. And so you can see that we truncated the core brand, which is a recognizable way of displaying the brand or the school from a public awareness perspective, down to CCA to significantly reduce the square footage. Just as an example, the signs depicted in the exhibits that I just showed are 84 foot in length. So when you factor what we're asking for and the fact that the building itself is about 240 linear feet, we're really asking for a much more scaled down than what I would say is a minimalistic ask in order to give public awareness for the brand, be within the spirit of the community zoning, and to safely navigate pedestrians and vehicular traffic in and around the property. So I just wanted to use that sort of to demonstrate the difference between what CCA primarily does versus what we're asking for in the community, because we really do believe that it's the minimal requested dimensional variance in order to achieve the desired goals that we stated here through testimony.
If I may, the 47.8 square feet on the signage on the north and south elevations, if I'm looking at this exhibit correctly, the length of the sign would be 10 feet 3 inches. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the entire linear dimension of the building itself is 240 feet?
That's correct. And that's a really important designation, Phil, because, you know, the ordinance states that the sign should not exceed 15 square foot, but it doesn't necessarily account to the size of the building. So the ratio of 15 square foot, maybe on a smaller building, could be more than enough in order to guide vehicular traffic or represent the use of the business. But in this case, being, you know, multiple stories and 240 feet long with 2 entrances and different kind of irregularities, we think it's really important we were able to obtain the signage as, you know, again, discussed in testimony. I did look at, and I don't know if it's a good use case, but just as an example, 2 businesses in the adjacent center. I'm not 100% certain if it's zoned the same, but it was the Baja Beach Tan building and the Armed Forces Career Center. So just as an example, in terms of ratio, which again, the code is not governing ratio, but just as an example, they probably take up maybe 50 to 60, 70% of the facade area and are over maybe 15 square foot, but this is much less in
Yeah, but this is
comparison.
different zone district.
Okay, thank you. But unless the board has any questions.
If I could ask one
Yes.
question. Mr. Lockett, in the narrative that you helped to prepare, you also included links to some standards that are promulgated by the United States Sign Council Foundation. Could you please tell us how those standards were factored into your decisions about the creation of the dimensions of the signs?
Yeah, that's a great question, Phil, thank you. So, the United States Sign Council gives us tools as sign branding specialists in order to properly size signs for minimum and maximum visibility. So, all of our designs that we're requesting are always within the recommended size for visibility under the United States Sign Council. Does that answer your question, Phil?
Thank you. And so that's Mr. Lockett's direct testimony. So if there are questions or from the board.
Talk about lighting, Mr. Lockett.
Yeah, in terms of lighting of the signs?
Yes.
Yes, sir. So the signs will have individual dimmable LED lights that are within each channel letter that make up one color or could make up multiple colors within the sign. So it's LED illumination.
And it's not backlit illumination, it's on the face?
It's on the face, but it has a clear lens over it. It does have a lens.
Let me make sure I understand the question. So I always think of backlit as the old style of the lights behind the sign.
Mm-hmm.
These lights are internal in the sign.
That's correct. So yes. So when we talk about backlit, we refer to that, sir, as a halo lit, meaning the
Mhm.
face of the sign is aluminum and the LEDs spill around in a ghosting, if you will, or around the letter.
That is not this.
That is not this case. This is what we would consider to be a face lit channel letter, but the lighting is individual LEDs that make up the color. So these letters are capable of changing colors. Does the board understand that?
Mr. Lockett, the exhibits that you brought, are any of those the pictures, the
Yeah.
color pictures, are any of those depictions of what the type of sign that you're?
Yes, sir. So if we refer back to sheet 7 on exhibit 1, this will give you a better visual, sir, of how these letters are fabricated.
While we're looking at sheet 7,
If I may as well, refer to these visuals. This is how the sign would look at night.
I want to keep pictures, just one moment, Eric. This part, I should have given you one of those, that's a good one, that's really good. So, looking at sheet 7, that particular sign design, can you identify where that one is going, just so I understand the corresponding numbers on page 2?
Yes, sir. So the sign shown on sheet 7 of exhibit 1 is an accurate detail reflecting what would be sign 2 and sign 3 on the corresponding elevations. And if I may, as an example, did we mark these as exhibit 2?
We did.
Okay.
And if you're gonna identify them, one is marked Harrisburg and one is marked Pittsburgh, please reference them as such.
We will choose exhibit 2 marked Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, to show the association between what the letter style shown and depicted in exhibit 1, sheet 11, looks like in the evening, and we're showing that on exhibit 2 marked Harrisburg for the board and for the public.
Would the chairman like to have a
May I
closer look?
approach the board? So this is really the best 2 ways to show exactly how that would look in the evening. So really, they take the look of a traditional channel letter at night, but the difference is if they have the capability to change colors. So as an example,
and it can be dimmed.
yes, they're completely dimmable as well, but for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, CCA will oftentimes make them pink, or do something that's July 4th, they could statically show an American flag, as an example, in terms of capability.
Mr. Lockett, I see on the exhibit A2 Harrisburg sign, top right, there is like a green tinted light that runs along the top edge of the building. That is not part of your.
That is not that we, and for the spirit of Wyomissing, that feature is taken off of our application altogether.
Submarine effect is gone. These lights don't change.
They are capable of changing.
Yeah, but you don't have them cycling. or
No,
anything
no,
like
no,
that.
sir, no, sir.
If that, well, if whatever number sign is on the face of this building across the street, and I walk out of here tonight at 8 o'clock and that sign is shining, how annoying is it to you?
It's gonna be the same as it would the signage that was there previously, that was a facelit channel letter. Those letters can be dimmed to the same level of light output as the existing letters with the acrylic overlay.
Does our zoning control that light output?
The actual like lumens?
Yeah. No, okay.
Just for clarification for my sake, you mentioned that the lights will not be changing, or the signs will not be changing. The monument sign that you're proposing would have text that would change at certain frequencies.
Correct.
We'll come back to that in a minute. But what you're saying is the light colors will not change, just rotate through or at any frequency. That's just special events.
Correct, that's correct. Jim, is that?
That is correct.
Fair
As you
statement.
mentioned, we do breast cancer
You just-
awareness.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
that's all right. Are we gonna be providing him as a witness separately? I'd rather not jump around with witnesses if we can avoid that and finish one witness
Okay.
first.
Okay.
Go ahead, please.
So to answer your question, the letters will not dynamically change colors or do crazy events. They will be static and appear like a traditional facelit channel letter, both in look and light output. Again, I point out that they're dimmable, and CCA is a community partner. So sir, if you were to leave here and go, my gosh, that's bright, and zoning called Jim and said, hey Jim, they look really bright, I think Jim would dim them. I don't want to speak on behalf of Jim, but if you wanted to put Jim under testimony, I would be willing to say, do so.
Jim has the switch.
Yes, sir. There are 3 people that have controlling capabilities. It's CCA's facility team, it's us, and it's the software provider.
Now, you did talk about the monument sign having digital capacity and being able, what's the size of the face of that sign?
The size of the face of the digital display is 5 foot by 10 foot.
And
One
what's the-
side, sir. One side is 5 by 10.
And it's gonna be double sided?
It is double-sided, perpendicular to the road.
Same message both sides?
Yes, sir.
And what's the frequency of rotation that you're proposing?
I don't have that answer. I would say it would not be frequent or violate the standards of the special exemption rules. And I would like to defer, if I could, to Mr. Skinner to talk about how they use that. Is that okay?
Absolutely, sure.
Not yet.
No.
We'll get to you when we're having this.
Sorry, it's out of sequence, I apologize.
That's all right. Other questions?
No. No, not for, more for Anderson.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Just want to make sure it's clear. Professional, the U.S. Sign Council is a professional sign organization.
Yes, sir.
And they're designed to support and help the sign company be able to propagate and sell signs.
Yes, well, it's really an industry resource that helps to guide design best practices, so that we're not over or under designing signs for safe and efficient vehicular traffic. So there's rules in terms of the size of the letter and minimum and maximum distance based off of certain color contrast. And those rules guide and govern the way we approach the design and aesthetics of signs. And this complies with the basis of that foundational best practice for this location.
All right, I want to go back to the page 3 of Exhibit A1.
Page 3. Okay.
I see sign, let's just kind of go around the order here. So we're looking at page 3 on A1, and I see sign number 1. Do you have in your packet here, is there a blow up of that particular sign like we talked about a moment ago with the other sign?
Yes, sir. On sheet 6 of Exhibit 1.
And is that also the one that, or is that a separate one as number 3?
Yes, that is separate from sign number 3.
Okay, so it's a different sign. Okay, so let's go to 2 next. Where is 2 in the, I think we talked about this already, but where is 2? That's in the rest of the set, the plan set. What page is that shown on?
2 is represented on sheet 7
Okay.
of Exhibit 1. Exhibit A.
Okay. And 4?
Four is represented on sheet 11 of Exhibit A, with additional details on sheet 12 and 13.
And for clarification, sign 4 is the monument sign.
That's correct.
Correct.
And number 3?
Number 3 is also depicted on sheet 7. It's the same detail.
All right, and how about what's happening at number 6? Both on the north and south elevations.
6.
Yes.
6 was the lighting.
Oh, 6 is the lighting that is not part of the application in any way.
Okay, so that is not going to be part of the application, that will not be there, is that correct?
That will not be part of the variance request or the permit application or any.
So is this the lighting that's along the roof edge that's similar to what I saw in Harrisburg?
That is correct.
But you're not going to be doing any lighting like that along the roof edge?
We are not.
Okay, so that's, would be removed from this plan.
Completely removed from this plan and the project as a whole.
And we talked about number 5, but that's not part of the application.
That's correct.
That's a refacing of the existing sign that's there. Is
That's
that
correct.
While Dan's writing, going back, why do you have number 1 and number 2?
I think you're asking a great question, sir. As I'm looking at this, I think it's redundant, personally. And I don't want to speak 100% on behalf of Jim, but I think if the board was okay with the application as a whole, I think we can eliminate that sign. I'm not seeing that it serves a purpose. If that's what you're asking.
Which one? 1 or 2?
1 and 2.
I'm sorry. That is sign.
That's 2 right beside
1
it.
and 2.
We're speaking of
Let me just make sure. I'm referring to sign number 1, which is the independent letter C that is directly next to the CCA that identifies the primary entrance. I think it's redundant. In my
You got the logo things there and
I think it's a great question, and I would say that if the board was okay, we would forego that sign as a condition of approval.
You would do for number 1?
We would eliminate sign number 1 as a condition of approval if the board was generous with the overall application. So,
Number 2 LED.
I don't think I have anything further to go into.
Number 2 is LED.
All right, 2,
we need definition.
we will.
Okay.
We'll get it from the other gentleman, I think.
Okay. All
And
right,
then we
good.
may come back. All right, so before we move on from Mr. Lockard, to Mr. Miller's out there, do you have any questions, not statements at this point in time, questions?
Yeah, that's what, I just kind of had a question, is number 2 the smaller sign, and is that an LED sign as well?
So number 2, so let me just try, turn to page 7, and you'll see what number 2 looks like. Is that correct, Mr. Lockard?
that's correct.
Yeah.
That is the sign we're
I
keeping.
mean, I can see visually, but I can't see what it looks like. Is that a LED sign?
Yes.
It is.
And does it have okay.
Yeah, I am showing Exhibit 2, Harrisburg, PA.
Okay, if you're saying here.
So just for the record, tell us which one you're pointing to.
It will look just like this.
So which one are you pointing to, Mr.
I
Lockard?
am pointing to the Commonwealth Charter Academy channel letters shown on the primary elevation of this picture.
But rather than spelling it out, Commonwealth
Yeah.
Charter, it's just gonna say,
It's just gonna say
Logo.
CCA. Logo CCA. Yes,
And that's on the rear of the building facing the parking lot.
that's correct. That's correct.
And what's the reason that that's needed?
To identify the entrance within the parking lot area.
what we were talking about, Mr. Miller, was number 1 is redundant with number 2.
Right.
So number 1 is just the C, and they've talked about, and we need to talk to the next witness, but potentially that they would remove that sign.
Right, I understood that. My question was about number 2 being luminescent sign. Is that necessary to be an LED sign on the rear side of the building for people who are coming in for the classes and things? Because that's what faces right into the residential side. And none of the other buildings, to my knowledge, have LED signs on the back of the building.
So good question, let's answer. So I think what Mr. Miller is asking is it necessary for that to be a lighted sign to the rear because it faces the residential area of the borough?
We think so, yes.
Why?
Well, it helps with the public awareness at night. They can also be timed as well, so that, they're not on too late into the evening. And I think CCA would be, okay with maybe lowering the time that those lights go off in the evening.
So let's talk about timing that for a moment.
Yeah.
So so let's talk about, and maybe we start with let's not talk about one at the moment, because we're gonna talk to the next witness about that and assume that that may be removed. So sign number 2, what would your general typical hours of illumination be? When would you turn it off?
I would like to defer to Mr. Skinner on that, if I could.
Yep, so all the timing then would be with Mr. Skinner?
That's correct.
Okay, that's fine, all right. Mr. Miller, do you have anything further for this witness?
I've just never seen a sign, an access
Okay.
sign like that turned
So-
off, so that's
so-
why my question
so-
is, would that actually be a sign that is literally turned off? The LED portion of it's turned off in the evening?
You could, because you'll see that the color that the letters are, the LEDs are on are blue as well.
Because it's just, my concern was it's this.
Okay, so
bright
questions,
blue.
Yeah.
questions. You can get your chance to talk about your concerns, but questions right now.
Sorry.
So it is that, my question is it would be that bright LED blue that
Correct.
I'm talking about with, big letters, so it's not necessarily a designation for people and that's where you come in, it's just an advertising for the company.
Yes and no. The location of the signs depict two things. They're public awareness for a location or a business that operates within a facility, but they're also used to depict traffic flow. And so those letters are over one of the primary entrances to the building, which are a visual cue for people that are unfamiliar with the building to know where to go. If that makes sense, sir.
Yeah, it makes sense, but. Go ahead.
Any more questions?
Not at this point. Not yet.
Sure.
Eric, what residence is behind the parking lot that you're concerned about?
We own the property that, if you look at the diagram, it's the one immediately behind the parking lot.
24 Reading
20
Avenue.
Yeah, 24 Reading Avenue. So if you're looking at the first one on the right side, that lot that's there, there's a parking lot on the left.
Page 2, Exhibit 1.
Yeah, you have it right there.
You have the parcel.
Yeah,
that
wait,
is-
one at a time. So one person at a time. So page 2 of exhibit 1.
Where is the residence?
Should I point to it?
Sure.
Sure.
The signs we're talking about are here. That's our residence right there.
No.
First lot, that lot, that's a parking lot. That's a barber shop, is the second one, and we have a property in between, which is a residence.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Lost track there.
One thing that I would say, just driving around, getting familiar with it, is there's a lot of visual obstructions in and around sort of the roadway. So it does serve the purpose to come in through the lot, find your space, and to be able to navigate to the entrance. I don't think that it's going to be a real nuisance to that residence, personally.
It's just the LED. The LED factor makes it a different animal than.
Okay, questions?
Can I ask? Is it all right, Matt?
Yes.
Will there be any signs saying, for example, your concern is traffic flow and whatnot, and public safety? There will be signs for entering the parking lot and exiting the parking lot and directions associated with that as well, in addition to these illuminated signs, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I think typical traffic signs.
Right. And those signs, there is no relief required for those because they're compliant with the ordinance.
That's correct.
Okay. So if there's nothing further, then I think, is there any other follow-up from the board? If not, then I think we're done with this witness at this time. So
Yes.
we'll go to your next witness.
All right, the next witness is Mr. Skinner, the facilities.
Just one moment, please, just for a moment. Off the record, we have a 3 o'clock. I hear people out in the hallway. Do we want to let them know that that's just been continued? So take a brief recess of this hearing and then we can reconvene. Okay. So as you may have heard, if you were here before, this doesn't have to be on the record. We had a 3 o'clock hearing, so normally we would be recessing this and coming back. That 3 o'clock is going to be continued. We need to put that on the record. So what we'd like to do is because there's people, we can hear them out there in the hallway, we want to take a brief recess and then have them just come in for a moment, explain what's going on, and then we'll move forward with this hearing, time permitting, and try to get this wrapped up.
Yeah, and I believe Mr. Skinner's testimony will be less extensive.
Okay, good. So just give us a moment to try to get this on the record. It'll probably take us about 15 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you guys can just take your stuff and back off the table for a moment, and then we'll take care of it next meeting.
Is that gonna be a different meeting? Should I shut down the camera?
It's gonna be a different hearing, yes.
Hearing.
If you wanna start.
So we're continuing this meeting just 10 minutes later,
We're
right?
gonna try to. We're gonna see how this next one goes.
I got
It should be
you.
quick.
Okay, so I'll shut it down and start again.
Can I let him in?
Well, it should be quick.
Am I good?
We
Let him
got-
in?
Yeah, yes.
Clock meeting of the Wyomissing zoning hearing board back to order. Counselor is in the process of questioning Mr. Skinner.
Yes, indeed. Mr. Skinner, you've been sworn. Could you please, for the board, detail your current position and how long you've held it?
Yes, my name is Jim Skinner. I am the Director of Facilities and Safety for the school. I've been at the school for about 12 years now, and I'm in charge of all of our buildings across the state, and have been working on the renovations of this particular one also.
And approximately how many facilities does CCA own or operate throughout the Commonwealth?
We have about 20 locations across the state. Most are owned, some are leased, but we're across the entire state.
And approximately how many students does CCA enroll on a statewide basis?
I believe we ended the year, last year, just a little over 30,000 students.
30,000.
30,000. We have roughly 24 to 2,500 employees across the state.
It's impressive.
We had a question about this. The building is being used primarily by administrative and teachers.
Yes, all of our buildings, we teach virtually. Our students are cyber. They're at home with their parent or caretaker, but we require our teachers to spend some time together. So they are rotating in and out of cubicles, basically, cubicles, offices, and they spend some time at home and some time together.
Is there any time that students would be there?
Sometimes students will stop by. We can get, obviously, we provide laptops, printers, everything they need to learn. And so if a student was in the Wyomissing area, the laptop broke, they might swing by and pick one up. You'll never see a school bus over there. We don't have football games or anything like that. So I tell people it'll probably look like the bank looked.
Not even virtual football game?
No, you really should see that parking lot look almost like the bank did. You know, if a parent and a student came in to do some sort of transaction and walked back out in their car and left.
But you don't have students coming there for classes.
Correct.
And they're not meeting there to go on field trips or anything like that?
It's really too small of a building. I mean, getting off on a tangent, but if you looked at a couple of those other buildings where we have more space, we can do different things like that. But if anybody wants to go over and walk through it, I can show you. It's cubicles and offices over there.
And what are the hours of operation?
So we're very flexible with our staff because students are so flexible online. Our staff are coming in anywhere from 7 a.m. and leaving maybe up to 6 p.m. So that teachers can flex their time based on what might be happening with one of their students at home. A lot of our students work. A lot of our students are in lots of other activities. So it's very, very flexible.
I have another question. I think during your testimony, you talked about it'll be the top 2 floors that are being used by you.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? What are you planning on doing with the bottom on the lower section?
Yeah, that's a great question. At this time, we've just fitted out with life safety right now. There's nothing going on in there think we kind of want to get in and settled and operate in the building for right now. We've had multiple people contact us, coffee shops, and a lot of other people have contacted us about doing something else in there. However, we're not ready to even think through that part of it yet.
All right, my question then would be, if you're going to lease it out, is there going to be a request for additional signage for those buildings?
Those folks would have to think that through. My gut feeling is the way we've been growing and the way we've been filling buildings, we don't really want to be a landlord. My gut feeling is we'll eventually do something with it for ourselves.
I don't know, we kind of interrupted
That's all
the
right.
direct testimony, so why don't you complete your direct testimony?
Certainly. Mr. Skinner, you've been involved with a number of sign projects on each of the facilities that you manage, is that correct? So as CCA has developed a certain color scheme that it considers to be its proprietary style and of logo and color scheme, has it not?
That's correct.
And this is used to identify CCA facilities throughout the Commonwealth.
That's correct.
With respect to the north facade and the two signs, the one single C and then the CCA illuminated signs, the adjoining property owners, Mr. Miller and Mr. Miller, were concerned about how bright it would be. Could you detail the adaptability of the proposed signage as far as its brightness and hours of operation are concerned?
Sure. As Bill had mentioned earlier, all of the signs are controlled by a software package. We can control any sign in the state at any time, and we have the ability to program them to turn off. We have the ability to have the lumens go down at a certain point. I feel very confident that we can work something out that would be satisfactory to anyone around the building.
And are there, on occasion, would there be need to use the building, say, after 6 p.m. on a particular night?
I don't think this building, I think this particular building, I mean, and really, we're only talking about winter time when it gets dark after, before 6. We could program that light to, as I said, we could have it go down to half lumens, we could have it turn off. It would be very simple to work out something to have that go down at an appropriate time.
And with respect to the monument sign and message board on the Penn Avenue side of the property, is CCA willing to partner with the borough of Wyomissing to include community messaging?
Absolutely. We do that in Harrisburg now.
Okay. No further direct questions?
Board members, any further questions?
I'm a little bit caught up because I don't know the exact questions I should be asking. Maybe Anderson can help me.
I have one thing I could probably add. Earlier, it came up about the sign and how the slides work.
The frequency of
Yes,
transition
so
of the
PennDOT has very specific rules on that. I believe, is this a PennDOT road?
It is.
So my thought would be, like we do in Harrisburg, we follow those rules.
Those rules, I believe, do you know what those rules are?
Yeah, our marketing team does, but
And
it's
do you-
very
do you-
specific at a intersection.
Do you know the frequency of the transition?
I don't, but I could get it.
Yeah, no, I believe that, I've looked at it for another matters not too long ago, and I believe, now it may be different at the intersection, but I believe it was something like every 7 seconds or something like that, it's permitted to transition.
You're right, it is within so many, it can't be less than a certain number of seconds because it can distract a driver. You can't have any video. You cannot play any video on a PennDOT road. It can only be slides. So it's very specific on what they allow, and we've typically on our signs just followed those rules.
We found that the PennDOT rules are far more liberal than we prefer.
If you have something in mind, I'm sure again, it's a programming thing. We would just program that sign to, you can come up with a number of seconds. We
have a sign 2 blocks away that we worked very hard to pin down exactly what those cycles are going to be, and obviously I don't have that in my head. But,
if that was a condition,
that could be a condition of
yeah,
our
no problem.
decision.
If I could offer, I'm looking at your ordinance, section 606A-19, which addresses signs that have messages that can change. And subpart A says electronic signs must provide a minimum change interval of at least 30 seconds.
That, I think, is, I know that's the ordinance, and I think this board has found, particularly on Penn Avenue and so on, that we've extended that. I just am lost as to what exactly it is, but we have a previous decision on it that was only made within the last 12 months.
Yeah, that's, whatever that is, just let us know.
I think in that decision, we actually looked at lumens and also directly.
Yeah. We would like to refer to that as, I believe, a condition because we are
If we
where we are.
grant the relief, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right. And because of those provisions in the ordinance, CCA is prepared to comply with whatever elements, it was prepared to comply with change interval with no segmented or traveling messages, and then the maximum luminance.
All right, so, Mr. Skinner, let me ask you this question. Is there any reason why we couldn't have this condition that the sign would get turned off at, for example, 7 o'clock in the evening?
Absolutely, that's fine.
The rear sign.
The rear sign.
The rear sign,
Yep.
rear sign.
Yep, no problem.
I'm kind of curious, what messages do you usually, if you're not partnering, what messages are you usually putting up on the board?
I think, we'll put something up about things we have going on. I think that's an award on there that,
And we're referring now to A2, the Harrisburg sign.
correct.
Where it talks about, I guess it's CCA, Governor's Award of Environmental Excellence. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, correct.
And I'm just curious, if you're cycling it every, let's just pull a number out, every 2 minutes, for instance, what other kind of things are you guys putting up there that are gonna be?
I just, again, thinking about the Harrisburg sign, we have the farm show complex right next to us. We'll put up things that we have going on in conjunction with the farm show. We will put up, we go after a lot of awards. We'll put up different awards that we've gotten. It kind of runs the gamut of what we have going on with our students. We'll put pictures of our students up when they've done something noteworthy.
But you can't hear, or can you?
No, there's no sound. Is that what you said?
No, put a picture up. You can't put a
We
picture
can
on this
put
sign?
a picture up, but you cannot have video.
Okay.
Where are you,
There's one. Yeah.
So we won't be able to mark that as an exhibit very easily.
Unless you want us to hold on to your phone.
Sure. You know what, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Can I bring it down, show it?
It's great,
Sure.
it's great for side
So make sure
football.
you're showing it to Mr. Millers and the folks in the back.
Absolutely. So these are just pictures of the Harrisburg sign, just to give you an idea.
All right. So just for the record, what Mr.
Trust me.
Tussman just showed us on his phone was a photograph of the Harrisburg sign, which shows 8 students that are a part of the organization on the sign, and there's some recognition of those students. If you want to just show the other, no, just show us the one. We get it. And then just, you can just show the folks what we're
Oh, I
talking
see.
about in terms of photos.
Yeah, okay, all right.
And then I want you to show that to the folks in the back as well.
Oh,
Sounds like an awful Miller Miller. And that's just a standard picture. Yeah, well, that's going away. That, you won't have that, it's much smaller, but, and it's just CCA.
Okay, let's move on. We saw that, we'll take notice of that particular picture. Now let's move on. You mentioned a few moments ago, Mr. Skinner, the color scheme, and I think I understand it from the pictures I've seen, but I didn't hear the actual words. Is it blue and yellow or blue and gold?
Yes, it's a blue and goldish yellow color, yes.
Okay. One of the questions that one of our board members asked, Mr. Allman asked, was the potential of leasing the property. The ground level portions of the property.
Mhm.
If you do that and they require signage, you understand that they would be required to come in and seek relief.
Absolutely.
And that relief very possibly would not be granted because you received this relief.
Yes.
You mentioned the bottom floor may be used for life safety. Just curious, what is that?
Oh, I apologize. We installed the life safety portion of what needed to be put in there in order to get occupancy in the rest of the building. So it has fire alarm, it has smoke, fire, correct lighting. It's set up in order to be able to in order for us to be able to occupy the building, but nothing else has been done to the space. It's just empty, no carpet, no paint, that kind of thing.
With this, assuming, well, actually, you're opening the building here in Wyomissing, where will you be drawing, pardon, the students from for this particular location?
Well, we don't draw students to a particular location because we're really drawing staff.
Okay.
We have a lot of commuters right now that are commuting into Harrisburg, and they bother me daily as to when Wyomissing will open. It will take a big commute off of their daily trip. So we're really looking at where is our staff, because that's who will be there. The students just kind of come, so a teacher could be teaching a class in Wyomissing, but the student, it could be Pittsburgh and Erie and Philly and York. The kids are all over, but they just might be their 6th grade algebra teacher happens to be sitting in Wyomissing.
Understood.
I often wish that's how far away my algebra teacher.
I believe that's,
Really good point.
I believe that's all the questions I have. You folks have?
I was gonna say, my history teacher lived in Wyomissing, but that was Mr. Miller and your father.
All right, Mr. Miller, Mr. Miller, do either of you have any questions for this witness?
Yes, just so I make sure I understand correctly, we had referred to the rear signage number 2 as being turned off, so does that mean that sign number 3 and 4 and 5 would be illuminated all the time? Or would those be turned off at a certain point of day?
We would not unless that became some other issue that came up. To be honest, I don't know enough about, are all the other signs on Penn Avenue shut down at a certain time? Then we would follow, and, yeah. Yeah. So.
What you had said about working with, again, the amount of lumens and whatnot, has there been other instances in other locations where you've had, again, to meet certain conditions with illumination, when you referred to like the Harrisburg event, that you'd had to adjust based on that?
Actually, I believe maybe the Pittsburgh location, which is in a large shopping complex, they might have some changes that happen there. I can't think of anything right off the top of my head.
Okay.
But again, we can be flexible. That's the beauty of the software.
Okay. And I know that to that point, then I know that the focus is the software gives the capability to be able to dim and to do different things from remote locations. But I also understand it as the hardship that's being stated here is that we're concerned with public safety and brand awareness and whatnot. What lumens are we talking about that still accomplish that goal? Do you feel it needs to be? Like, what would the sign be if there wasn't a condition based on a certain number of lumens, and the brightness of it? What would that be with, and what would it be kind of without if there was a condition that still accomplishes that goal?
I don't know, but just going back to what, and not to speak for anybody at that end of the table, but I kind of mentioned maybe just having having it shut off at a certain time, maybe the simplest way to look at it. If it was shut it off at 7 p.m. or something like that, then we don't have to worry about it then.
Okay, any other questions as a result of Mr. Miller's questions? All right. Hearing none, do you have any further redirect or questions?
We do not.
Do you have any further witnesses?
We do not.
Right, and you rest at this point in time, move for your exhibits?
Yes, we do.
Okay, any objections to the exhibits?
No.
Any objections to their exhibits, Mr. Miller?
No, I was gonna say, can I ask a question too, on the last part?
Oh, sure, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. So I wanna understand, we're talking about 5 signs, one that we're not talking about here at all, because number 5 is already kind of grandfathered or whatever, right? Then we're talking about 1, 2, 3, and 4, and as these conversations went, we're saying, okay, well, 1, maybe that's not happening. What is the zoning right now for the number of LED signs that's permitted without a variance or a special exception for business?
The board is not answering questions.
Okay.
That's something that you can look in the zoning ordinance, or you can hire your attorney to look at that. We're here to,
Thought they would know
you can
that.
ask Mr. Skinner if he knows that.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
I do not know that.
Okay.
Or the attorney I was asking, actually.
He doesn't answer questions either. He's the attorney directly. Okay? Although Mr. Miller's comment did make me think of something else I want to just make sure we're clear on. Mr. Skinner, do you also agree that you will not need sign number 1 and that would be removed from the application?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Miller, that did refresh my memory on that, so I appreciate that. All right.
Okay.
So I believe that's it. Now, I'm gonna give you the opportunity to make a closing statement if you care to do so, but I'm gonna ask, first, Mr. Miller, do you have any evidence or witnesses that you'd like to present, including yourself or your son?
I would like to make a.
We will have, if you want to make a statement, we'll have you do that. Understand it will be sworn under oath, and just like that, I forgot. Mr. Murin will be able to ask you questions if he cares to do so.
Sure.
Okay? So, if you want to do that right now, you can feel free to do so.
I'd like to say a couple of things. I think that the work that this company has done so far it looks great. I mean, it's been very well done. It's first class. They've been very respectful of the neighbors and the things that are going on there. And I know everybody that lives there and owns the places that are there. My looking back on this, being a long time Wyomissing person, and then people coming in, it's harder to understand, is that there were certain things that were put in place because Wyomissing was was trying to get zoning done a certain way. So that's why they have things in. And as this meeting started in the beginning, we talked about the reason to deviate from that is to show a hardship that's worthy of, of them accepting, variance for that cause. From what I've listened to here so far, the main purpose for all the signs, having them LED as opposed to not as bright and so on, has been more branding and marketing and advertising, because you don't have customers that are coming to this site. You have directional signs on all the places coming in, and you could have signage like where they actually go through the door into the building. So I don't see any issues with people finding their way in the back, which leads me to, I don't understand why there's any LED signs that would be necessary to create a variance or a hardship to be in the back part of the building. In the front part of the building, all of these things that I see here, is sometimes when some of the approvals go for a Wawa, you see them get approved, and if it was a Sheetz, it doesn't get approved. And I'm not saying we're Sheetz, because that's the extreme, but some of these going moldable LED signs and having ones that the pictures change, regardless of the frequency, is going on the high end as far as the advertising, promotion, and branding portion. And I think that's where you'd see a lot of resistance to, a lot of other people, not just me, because I'm the one who's here. And I do feel comfortable that you're going to be respectful of that, as far as things and working together. I just want you to understand how all the neighbors kind of feel about, signage and brightness and things there. So when I'm kind of asking, when the board looks at this, they analyze it as to not creating a hardship for this company, because they're an asset to our community here, and I can tell they do things the right way. At the same time, being respectful of what signage is actually needed. It doesn't need to be LED, doesn't need to be, I have less concern about the size as I do the brightness. Do you need to see it from 2 blocks away, which an LED you would, as opposed to being able to see it from a block away. And if you drive around, you can see all the different signages and how they're done. And you don't see many multiple signs like this here in this area. So, I leave it to the zoning board to decide, and I know that, you certainly sound flexible on everything and working within what they need, but I came because I wanted to express my general concerns and also get a feel for what was actually being planned to be done here. And thank you for letting me talk so long.
Mr. Muir, do you have any questions for Mr. Miller?
Just to clarify the record, you said that you own the property at 24 Reading Avenue. Is that your principal residence?
No.
Okay, so it's a rental property?
Yeah, there's 2 families. It's a 2-unit, there's 2 families. Most of the properties there that are across the street as well, they're all rental properties. But families are living in there like we have, so yes.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all I really needed to clarify.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, this is the junior. Are you, have any statement or question? No. Okay, thank you very much. All right, is there anybody else that's here that would like to make an unsworn statement? I see none. Oh, I do see one.
Yeah.
Go ahead. And your name again for the record?
Dr. Angela Adler.
Okay.
I wanted to say that I agree with Mr. Miller. I have astigmatism, and driving at night is hard for me because lights screw with my vision. And one of the great things about living in Wyomissing and why I returned here after having moved away is that there's less light pollution. And so I think that thinking about the spirit of Wyomissing is important. I have also lived in Pittsburgh, and I understand that, that there is a fundamental difference, that's where I moved from, in the need for LED signs in Pittsburgh, where you're using them for navigation as compared to Wyomissing, where you're not going, 45 miles an hour through intersections and things like that. So I think Mr. Miller made some really excellent points, and I just wanted to echo them.
Thank you very much. All right. At this point then, I believe we're at the end. Oh, I gave you the opportunity to make a closing statement if you care to do so.
Certainly, and actually, I don't want to do anything in the nature of testimony, but just to explain in response to Mr. Miller's points about why a sign is needed on the rear of the property in the parking lot. And Mr. Lockett did testify somewhat to that, and Mr. Skinner started talking about staff and staff occupancy. If the board would like, I can offer what I know, but if you'd rather hear it from Mr. Skinner, we can do it that way as well.
So you're asking to reopen your case for the purpose of adding additional testimony in light of Mr. Miller's statement?
If the board would allow.
Okay.
All right, but, Mr. Skinner, you testified earlier about the staff spending a portion of their working month in in one of the facilities. And how many professional staff does CCA employ now?
It's somewhere in the 2,500 range.
And does CCA have sufficient capacity, sufficient space right now to have all of those employees on premises 100% of the time?
No.
So right now, what is the proportion of time that a typical teacher would spend in the CCA facility itself?
They are required to be there 1 week per month.
And under that regimen, when the employees rotate, are the cubicles filled 100% of the time during each month?
Typically, when the building becomes full, yes.
All right, and how many spaces for teachers will there be in the building here on Penn Avenue?
I think it's somewhere in the 100 cubicle range.
So given the way that the rotation system has been working mathematically, would you anticipate that there would be a total of about 400 teaching staff who would spend a portion of their working time here at
I would
Wyomissing?
have to go back and double check, but I'm trying to think how many parking spots are there, to be honest. I'm not positive.
Right. But there would be a need for staff to come in and locate and staff is constantly turning over in some ways.
That's correct.
So it is necessary at some point for the staff to be oriented toward where they need to enter the building.
Correct.
And sometimes parents of students do come to the building and need to enter it to speak with teachers or have other administrative business, do they not?
Correct.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to clarify for the record.
Can I respond to?
No, you want to ask a question?
then
Yes,
for that?
please, you can ask a question.
Okay, yeah, I hear what you're saying. My question is, are you aware that like different companies, I know you have your branding and it's a bright blue with some yellow LED lights, but for example, if Wawa was doing something in Avalon, they have to conform to Avalon, New Jersey.
So what's your question, Mr. Miller?
Here's my question. They have to conform to the local zoning that's there, so they don't always stay with.
Mr. Miller, that's why you're here today. They're here asking to comply with our variance from our zoning. So what's your question?
No, I was leading to it, sir. My question is, would you be willing on the sign on the rear, okay, to go away from the LED sign with the bright blue letters and just do a normal sign on the back portion, rather than, and your LED ones in the front and the larger size, but would you be willing on that back to just have that a normal sign that's not an LED bright lit sign?
Should I answer?
Yes.
The question is for you.
We would rather go along with what we've already discussed and turn the lights off at whatever time the borough requests.
All right. Yeah. So if there's nothing further at this point in time, Mr.
Murray.
Murray, thank you very much. Then at this point, then you rest,
We do.
and we will then go into an executive session to discuss the case.
We have any of the legal things.
No, we did that. That was all the stuff we did in the
Okay,
beginning.
taking care of
And we
that.
did that,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, we're gonna recess this.
Hold on one moment. Do you have something further that we haven't put into record already?
No, I didn't know if I had to testify to the.
No, could we put that memorandum?
You did all of that as well?
Yes,
Okay.
we put, your memorandum was part of the board exhibits.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay, let's recess. If you'll excuse us, we'll see if we can. Hearing board back to order. Is there a motion?
Yes, I move that the application of Commonwealth Charter Academy Charter School for a variance from section 606.D1 to allow an area of an individual sign to exceed 15 square feet. A variance from section 606.D2 to allow more than one freestanding sign or one wall attached sign to face any one street. And a special exception from section 606.A19 to allow a sign with a digital message board that can change electronically is granted, subject to the conditions be placed on the record by our solicitor.
Just one clarification. I believe 606D2 we concluded was not required.
Oh.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so let's just talk about that for a moment. So after reviewing this, and in light of the removal of the second sign in the rear of the building, we don't believe that you need a variance for the second sign for the rear of the building. That's section 606D2, we believe is no longer needed because the applicant removed sign number 1, which was the second sign in the rear of the building. One sign is already on the rear of the building that's pre-existing non-conforming at that location. So we don't believe you need that relief. You will still need the relief for the size for that sign, however. So as we see it now, there's 3 pieces of relief that you need. You need, as Mr. Allman just pointed out, you need the 606D1 for both the front and rear sign, and you need the 606A19 for the special exception. And I believe that's what Mr.
Right, in fact, I'll amend my motion to remove any reference to 606.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
I amend my motion to remove any reference in my motion to section 606.D2, the variant, and the request for a variance from same.
And let me just make sure I'm clear. Do you agree with that interpretation of what we just talked about and understand where we're going?
I do.
Okay, all right, and the conditions that would be imposed would be as follows. The conditions for the frequency and the duration of the monument sign, digital sign board will be, for the rotation and the frequency of the rotation and the lumens will be consistent with what this zoning hearing board imposed upon the Bousman Memorial Church, which is located about 2 blocks away from your building on Penn Avenue. We don't remember exactly those details. That will be in the written decision which will come out, but it will be consistent with what we've already imposed in that particular instance.
And I'm sorry, that was Bousman?
B-A-U-S-M-A-N.
B-A-U-S,
Yeah,
Bousman Memorial. It's just up the street on the other side.
Okay. The next condition will be that the rear sign must be turned off not later than 7 p.m. every day. And then the remaining conditions will be our standard conditions, which is you'll be bound by all of the testimony and exhibits that have been presented at today's hearing, that you will comply with all the requirements of the zoning ordinance and any other borough rules, regulations, or ordinances that may be applicable to the property. The next condition will be that you'll use and develop the property, maintain the property in compliance with all federal, state, local laws, rules, and regulations. The next one is that you will apply for and obtain and pay for all permits that are necessary for the construction of the signs and any other work that's done at the site. The next condition is that to the extent that you're altering any of these, the relief that's been granted, that you would be talking to the zoning officer and coming back to the zoning hearing board for further relief. The next one is that you'll implement the relief that's granted here within 1 year from the date of the written decision. Then failure to comply with any of those conditions could result in the immediate revocation of any zoning permit. And I think that's it for the conditions.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried. Relief is granted.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
do you want to keep those boards for your record?
I do.
Okay.
I don't, but
So just to clarify then, on the rear side of the property, one sign, 47.8 square feet, with,
Shutting it down at 7 P.M.
I'm sorry?
Shutting it down at 7
So,
P.M.
and, but it is permitted to have LED lighting.
Yes, we're not.
Very good.
We don't want your teachers getting lost on the way to work.
Thank you.
We appreciate that.
Okay?
Thank you all.
Thank you, good luck.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Michelle, Michelle, Anderson.